Welcome to Divine Therapy Incorporated. As we cross the threshold into this 31st century, I invite you to settle into a space of profound, visionary depth. Imagine you are standing in a high, secular library where the walls are not made of stone, but of liquid mercury, reflecting every possibility of who you might have been and who you are yet to become. Take a breath that feels like it is expanding the very architecture of your mind, inhaling the cool, crisp air of pure potential and exhaling the heavy, stale dust of old definitions. Today, we are exploring the landscape of the subconscious. We are talking about the invisible kingdom, that vast, inner territory of dreams, symbols, and hidden archetypes that governs 90% of your life while you focus only on the 10% you can see. This is a story for those who feel driven by forces they don't understand, for those who repeat patterns they hate, and for anyone who has forgotten that to change the world outside, you must first map the world within. This is the story of a man named Silas and the Atlas of the Deep. In a city built on a grid of rigid logic and cold efficiency, where the people believed that only what could be measured, weighed, and sold was real, there lived a man named Silas. Silas was the city's most celebrated efficiency expert. He lived his life by the clock, the spreadsheet, and the hard fact. He believed that the mind was a machine, that emotions were noise, and that the inner life was a fairy tale for the weak. He prided himself on his absolute control. He was a man of the surface, a man who believed that if he kept the garden of his life perfectly manicured, there would never be any weeds. But the psychological weight of this rational tyranny was a growing, subterranean pressure. While Silas's surface life was a masterpiece of order, his inner life was becoming a riot of chaos. He suffered from symbolic intrusions, sudden, irrational flashes of imagery that made no sense to his logical mind. He would be in a board meeting and suddenly see a black wolf pacing in the corner of his eye. He would be sleeping and find himself drowning in an ocean of violet ink. He felt a constant, underlying dread, a sense that something other was living inside him, waiting for the lights to go out so it could take the wheel. He was a man in a glass house, terrified of the shadows in the basement. One night, the surface finally cracked. Silas was walking home when the street beneath him didn't just feel like asphalt, it felt like skin. The buildings didn't look like concrete, they looked like giant, frozen sentinels. The logic of the city dissolved, and Silas found himself standing at the edge of a great, dark forest that sat in the very center of his own mind. In the middle of the woods, sitting on a throne made of twisted roots and old bones, was a woman with skin like the moon and a dress made of shifting smoke. She carried a compass that didn't point north, but pointed toward meaning. She was the cartographer of the invisible kingdom. "You have spent your life measuring the fence, Silas," she said, her voice sounding like the wind through an ancient canyon. "But you have never once looked at the land the fence is supposed to protect. You think you are the master of your house, but you are just a squatter in the attic. The other you fear is not a monster, it is your own discarded soul. It is the anger you suppressed, the creativity you shamed, and the wildness you tried to kill. And because you have ignored it, it has become a ghost that haunts your hallways." She showed Silas the Atlas of the Deep. It was a map not of roads and cities, but of archetypes and energies. She showed him the swamp of the unspoken, where his repressed grief had turned into a thick, poisonous fog. She showed him the cave of the inner child, where a small, shivering version of himself was still hiding from the logic of his father. She showed him the mountain of the shadow self, where the black wolf he had seen in the boardroom was actually his own untapped power, pacing because it was bored and hungry. To be a whole man, the cartographer said, you must stop being a manager and start being an explorer. You must learn the language of the invisible kingdom, the language of symbol, metaphor, and myth. You must realize that when you dream of a flood, it is not about water, it is about the emotions you are holding back. When you dream of a locked door, it is not about wood, it is about the parts of yourself you have exiled. Silas spent 7 years in the woods of his own mind. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating work of his life. He had to descend into the swamp and weep the tears he had held back for 40 years. He had to enter the cave and hold the hand of the shivering boy. He had to climb the mountain and make peace with the wolf. He learned the sacrament of the internal compass. He learned that his irrational feelings were actually the most accurate data points he possessed. He realized that the noise he had hated was actually the music of his destiny. As he mapped his inner world, his outer world began to transform. He was no longer a rigid machine. He became a man of depth. He found that when he honored the invisible kingdom, the surface world became effortless. He didn't need to control his life anymore because he finally understood the forces that were driving it. He moved with a new kind of grace, the grace of a man who was at home in his own skin, both the light and the dark. Eventually, Silas returned to the city of logic. But he didn't return to his old job. He opened a school of the inner map. He taught the efficiency experts that a life without a soul is just a well-organized death. He showed them how to look past the surface of their problems to the symbolic roots beneath. He taught them that the monsters in their dreams were actually messengers in disguise. He became the cartographer for a new generation, a man who proved that the most important territory you will ever explore is the one that lies between your ears. If you are watching this today, and you feel like you are haunted by patterns you can't change, if you feel like there is a gap between who you pretend to be and who you feel you are in the dark, please know that we see you. We know the exhaustion of the surface life. We know the fear of the basement. We know the feeling that your own mind is a foreign country you are afraid to visit. But at Divine Therapy Incorporated, we want to remind you of Silas's discovery: you are the king or queen of an invisible kingdom. The chaos you feel inside is just an unmapped wilderness waiting for a leader. Your dreams are not noise, they are the letters from home. Your sudden emotions are not weakness, they are the compass trying to tell you that you are off course. What is the black wolf in your life right now? What is the one recurring dream, the one irrational fear, or the one ugly emotion that keeps showing up? Stop trying to manage it. Stop trying to fix it with logic. Imagine yourself now, standing at the edge of that inner forest with Silas. Look at the cartographer. Take the compass. Don't be afraid of the dark. The dark is just where the gold hasn't been found yet. You are the mapmaker. Take a deep, visionary breath. Feel the vastness of your own internal landscape. You are not a machine, you are a mystery. You are not a worker, you are a world. And the kingdom you are mapping right now is the foundation for a life of infinite meaning and unbreakable peace. Thank you for trusting us with your journey through these 31 stories. May your compass be true, may your maps be deep, and may you always have the courage to explore the invisible truth of who you are.